I think many of you out there in Cougar Nation probably had a similar thought go through your head in the aftermath of BYU's thrilling win over Oklahoma State. I'm invoking the words from Dumb and Dumber and Harry Dunn, where he says this: just when I thought you couldn't be any dumber, you go and do this and totally redeem yourself.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Welcome on into a postcast edition of Locked On Cougars, and a big thank you to all of you who like to call everydayers, as this is your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show obviously is all about BYU's thrilling 38-35 comeback win as the 13th ranked BYU football program remains perfect on the year with a 7-0 record by virtue of their 38-35 win over the Oklahoma State Cowboys. What a game. That is one of those games, I'm saying this right out at the outset of today's show, that is one of those games that 2 or 3 decades down the road, you'll be talking with a buddy or buddies of yours, and you'll say, hey, do you remember that game that Jake Retzlaff drove BYU down the field, hit Darius Lassiter for that touchdown to beat Oklahoma State? Where were you that night? For the 62,000 plus of you who are inside LaVell Edwards Stadium, wherever you might be in the country, if not the world, I think many of you will recall exactly where you were at. That is one of those iconic moments. Those are the type of moments in a game like this that make lifelong fans out of young kids. I can tell you guys, many of you know my background. I grew up around BYU. I can tell you specifically the 1996 BYU football team. There was they call it the KO punch, the KO Louis touchdown catch against Texas A&M in that thrifty kickoff classic game on a sweltering August day in Provo at LaVell Edwards Stadium. That pass was caught. It was an iconic play, and that hooked me for life when it comes to the BYU Cougars. Plays like what happened between Darius Lassiter and Jake Retzlaff in this game are going to hook many a young Cougar fan for life. The scenes, the absolute pandemonium erupting inside LaVell Edwards Stadium, those are moments that last a lifetime. I have many of them that I've experienced myself. I've been privy to a bunch of them, both as a media member and also as a fan before I got into the media, and they stick with you literally for years. You can tell people exactly where you were at, what exactly happened, the sights, the smells, just everything involved with it. So embrace what you just observed from BYU. It was a marvelous victory. It is one of those games that BYU will forever look back on, and it'll be an iconic play that is in highlight reels for years to come. That touchdown pass, Jake Retzlaff threading the needle to Darius Lassiter, him scraping past 3 Oklahoma State defenders into the end zone to celebrate. What an incredible scene that was. All of it doesn't happen without other things happening. Obviously, a big third down conversion by Chase Roberts, a big run by Jake Retzlaff, BYU finding themselves down 4 points with 1 minute and 13 seconds to go and having 2 timeouts and driving the length of the field, going 75 yards to get that win. That is a marvelous victory. I said it on yesterday's podcast. There was a question asked to me by some of our listeners about the 84 national championship season, which ironically BYU honored that team at the game against Oklahoma State and this 2024 squad. And I talked about yesterday, those of you who are everydayers, about the fact that the 2024 season, in my mind, to that point, had not had an iconic moment. Many of you will recall Kyle Morrell's dive over the pile to drag down Raphael Cherry against Hawaii. It's one of those iconic plays from the 84 season. There's the iconic play in the Holiday Bowl of Robbie Bosco throwing that touchdown pass that sealed up the 13-0 record and ultimately the national championship for BYU. We got the iconic moment. I believe the true iconic moment to this date or to this point of the BYU football season in this game. That pass from Jake Retzlaff was absolutely marvelous. On point, on time, allows Darius Lassiter to do his thing with his nifty footwork, gets into the end zone. It's an iconic moment that will live on forever. This was a marvelous victory for BYU because it shows that this BYU team, they've got legitimate cojones, intestinal fortitude, stones. I'm using euphemisms because you know exactly what I'm talking about. BYU had not been in that situation yet this season, and they responded in a very emphatic and positive fashion in rallying for that victory. This is a BYU team that has been able to be a front runner, has been able to close teams out while leading. They had not been down late in a game to this point in the season. That drive, that singular drive, albeit the stats around it are going to be one of those things that you look back at. If this season truly becomes what we think it could become, 12-0 potentially, a college football playoff berth, a Big 12 title game appearance, the works. If it works out that way as the season progresses, this game, that drive, and in particular that touchdown throw, I think will live on as an iconic moment in BYU football history. And those of you who watched it, whether you were there in person inside the Ed, as we like to call it, LaVell Edwards Stadium, or if you were watching on TV, wherever you're at, you will remember the scenes, exactly what you were doing and what you experienced in that moment. It's an incredible, incredible thing. Other positives to take away from this game. BYU's found their ground game, folks. 255 yards on the ground. LJ Martin, I've been crowing about it for months. I'm taking a victory lap. He is a thoroughbred of the highest order when it comes to running backs. Has his career high with 120 yards on 20 carries. 6 yards per carry. That's incredible. This offense is coming along, and it's coming along very, very nicely. And in some ways, it still doesn't even feel like they've even reached the ceiling of their potential as an offense. This is a BYU squad that has had the ball bounce its way multiple times. The other thing I want to note is that BYU won this game being minus in the turnover margin. Kalani Sitake, one of the chief weaknesses of his teams during his 9-year run now at BYU, has been when they have been minus in the turnover margin. They traditionally have lost those games. BYU was -1 in this game. And I mentioned that right at the outset of today's show, the quote from Dumb and Dumber, you go and redeem yourself. Jake Retzlaff had two absolute boneheaded interceptions in that first half to put BYU behind the 8 ball. Comes out in the second half, leads BYU to a thrilling victory. And like I said, you totally redeem yourself. What an incredible game. What an incredible atmosphere. And tip of the cap to all of you inside LaVell Edwards Stadium. I'm sequestered away 3 stories up above the stands in the West Stands, but I could tell you, sitting there in the press box, the stadium was electric. You could feel the energy pulsing from it. And the nice part is, BYU's game ops put on an incredible show alongside the football game that's being played. It's a really fun time and a really easy time to be a Cougar fan right now. And let's all embrace it. This is, once again, one of those moments you will forever remember. That drive against the clock, down 4, needing a touchdown, and you see Jake Retzlaff hit Darius Lassiter. What an iconic moment. And incredibly enough, it's one of those plays, I'm telling you right now, 20, 30 years down the line, you'll see the Miracle Bull Hail Mary catch. You'll see the Kyle Morrell dive over the line. You'll see Beck to Harleen against Utah in 06. You'll see some of these iconic plays. And I'm telling you, this play between Retzlaff and Darius Lassiter, if this season goes down the way it's going right now, the track it's on, that's going to be one of those plays that you're going to see for decades to come. What an incredible night. I don't want to get too much into the weeds about statistics and the like, because why? Why do we really need to do that? We can bask in the glow of what we just experienced. What a night. What a win. And congratulations are in order to Kalani Sitake and his team. They absolutely delivered when they needed to keep the dream alive, to keep that perfect season alive. You've got to make iconic plays, iconic moments when it comes to seasons of this magnitude. And so far, so good for the BYU football program. But are there things that are still out there that BYU can be tripped up by? Absolutely. I've got 3 things in mind. We're going to dig into those as we continue on with this postcast edition coming up next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, Game Time is here for you guys if you want to get out to the next BYU home game. And just, let's see, we're about 4 weeks away from it. When Kansas comes to town, well, Game Time's got the options for you guys. But if it's not just college sports or sports in general, theater, comedy, music, concerts, they've got everything available to you guys on their incredible app. They have an incredible new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting all tickets to your favorite teams, see your favorite teams or other events live as easy as possible. It filters out all the fluff, showing you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time looking through thousands of other ticket options to find the right option for you guys. I love the all-in pricing feature. You toggle it on in the app. It tells you exactly what you're paying, fees included, right up front. You don't have to worry about, okay, where's this fee and that fee. All of it is shown right up front. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with our friends at Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. It is 2-something in the morning, and I am buzzing, folks. What an incredible night it was. BYU escapes with their perfect record intact. Could things still catch up with them this season? Abso-freaking-lutely. They nearly caught up with them against Oklahoma State. There are three things in particular I think BYU needs to focus on in the coming 8 days ahead of their road game at UCF. So let's get to those as we continue on with POSTCAST here. Number one, BYU's got to figure out what they're doing with the rushing defense. Giving up 269 yards to Oklahoma State, that is rough. That's not going to get it done. And by the way, I know that UCF is calling on some hard times of late, but they are one of the hardest running teams, the most successful running teams in all of the conference, if not the entire country. They would absolutely love to go for 300 plus yards on the ground against BYU. In fact, when UCF has won games this year, routinely they have done just that. BYU's got to fix the run defense. I don't know that there's necessarily a perfect fix for it, because what I saw against Oklahoma State and what I'm going to have to go back and rewatch in my film review is that I saw defensive ends completely getting discombobulated, crashing down on defensive ends with read option and not playing with gap integrity. And that goes for guys like Tyler Batty, goes for Isaiah Banya, goes for Logan Latu. It goes all the way down the list, and that doesn't absolve even the defensive tackles. I thought this was by far BYU's worst game for their defense, bar none, but particularly up front for the defensive line. Oklahoma State, and I watched a fair amount of Oklahoma State coming into this game, they used a new offense. They had Garrett Rangel under center as their starting quarterback. Now, obviously, he was lost due to injury after an incredible 56-yard pickup right up the gut on BYU. But Alan Bowman came in, and they kept running an offense that we had not seen a lot of read option, RPO, new looks that BYU wasn't, I think, fully ready for. But there are basic things in BYU's defense that we're talking the most veteran of players. Like I said, Tyler Batty, Isaiah Banya, John Nelson, Blake Bingleton, these studs who have been fantastic by and large all season long. They were getting burned on stuff like this. It's got to get fixed. You can't have guys continually crashing down on running backs because all the quarterback sees is, that guy's crashing down, pull the ball, run for 5 yards exactly where you were at in that slot, if not further than that. I can tell you that Alan Bowman pales in comparison to what KJ Jefferson or what any of the other quarterbacks at UCF have at their disposal. They will expose this time and time and time again unless BYU finds a way to fix it. Next thing needs to be fixed for BYU. Third down defense continues to be an absolute Achilles heel for this BYU team. 9 of 13. Oklahoma State converted 9 of their 13 third down attempts. Remember, there's a 3rd and 13 late in this game. The BYU, if they get off the field, they got an opportunity to see this game out. And what does Oklahoma State do? They convert on 3rd and 13. It's just, they are backbreaking. I mean, absolute backbreaking type plays because they're demoralizing for the players. They're demoralizing for the fans. And it's got a guy like Jay Hill, who's the defensive coordinator, wanting to tear out his hair because he's like, guys, for the love of you-know-what, can you figure it out? It's got to improve at some point. I don't know what it's going to take for BYU, but 9 of 13, they're winning. Let's acknowledge all this. They are 7-0, but they are doing some things that could catch up with them and nearly caught up with them against Oklahoma State. And one of them absolutely is that 9 of 13 mark on third downs. On the positive side, BYU's offense got to 50% on their third down conversions for the first time this season. They were 5 of 10 in this game, and both teams 2 of 2 on their fourth down attempts. So you got to find a way to get off the field for BYU. The defense is doing itself no favors. They play really good, it feels like, on first and second down routinely, but in the third down, it's just a letdown. And They're 7-0. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that they have a perfect record right now, but there are still some glaring issues that need to be shored up for BYU. And I think that third down conversion deal is absolutely something that you got to pay attention to. The final thing I'm going to mention here, and these are the three things I just kind of thought of off the top of my head, I'm going to go back and rewatch this, is that there are what I perceive to be drops and what the actual drops are on the stat sheets and the game notes and that, like, there's differences there. But BYU's wide receivers, they've got to secure the ball far more, especially in that first half. There were, let's see, I would kind of drop against Renner Swanson, Twilly Evans, JoJo Phillips, and all of which were very big plays waiting to happen, and they crippled BYU's offense in the first half. Once again, they won the game 38-35, so it's hard to be too harsh on it, but these wide receivers, they've got to be able to secure the ball better than they are right now. All of this could add up at some point and catch them and absolutely see their perfect season fall by the wayside. But I'm trying to I'm not trying to absolve them of all guilt here, because I'm telling you, what I'm saying here, it pales in comparison to what the coaches are telling them in those meeting rooms. Coaches love when they win games and they struggle in those wins like they did against Oklahoma State. They are the perfect teaching opportunity for these coaches to go, hey, you think you're hot stuff? Well, you got to fix that. You got to fix this. You got to fix that. They love being able to both teach guys, but at the same time, pat them on the head and say, I know that you need to fix this, but you still got the win, and I'm happy for you guys, and I'm proud of you guys for finding a way. That's one of the hallmarks of this BYU team, to go back to the positive for just a moment, is this is a team that continues just to find a way. Merrill Hodge, obviously a longtime commentator for ESPN, a former NFL running back. He has talked often about, he uses the term find a way, and he's not wrong about that. This BYU team is veteran laden. They've got great leadership. They've got a coaching staff that is letting these players really lead this program. But the nice part is they continue to find new ways to win football games. They're not all going to come pretty. And this Oklahoma State game, it was ugly in many respects. Jake Retzlaff completed 50% of his passes. Like, there are so many things that you could nitpick about this game. But the nice part is, when the chips were down, when they were facing major adversity in this game once again, they find a way to get themselves up off the mat, drive their way down the field against an onslaught of an Oklahoma State team, and get the W. Really, really impressed with this BYU team, but there are things that still need to be rectified and shored up and fixed, because if they don't, it feels like it's inevitable at some point those things will conspire against BYU and cost them a game that they very well would like to win. So there's kind of the two sides of the coin here, but I really do like what we're seeing from this BYU squad. They're showing a lot of gumption, a lot of mojo, a lot of fire, a lot of passion out there on the field, and that goes a long way, but there's plenty still to improve. If BYU really wants to go to the quote-unquote promised land, our good friend Zach Hicken, by the way, had a great tweet. The BYU is what we like, what Jake Retzlaff likes to call himself, is leading BYU out of the wilderness after 40 years. Well, kind of not wrong about that, obviously, but incredible scenes and a big win all the same for BYU. What did you guys have to say about it? Well, I can tell you, between my mentions on social media and our Locked On Cougars Insider group, we have got well over 200, count them, 200 thoughts on this game. Will I be able to read all 200 of those thoughts? I'd like to think I could, but we'd probably be here for the next 4 to 5 hours. And we're not going to do a podcast that long. We're not Joe Rogan here, but we'll get to as many as we have in the time remaining as the postcast rolls on with a big win for BYU over Oklahoma State. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, if you want to get started this season with a big return on FanDuel, you can do it, as they are America's #1 sportsbook. And the best part is, them to be just an NFL fan. NBA, NHL, college football in this circumstance with BYU, college basketball upcoming for BYU hoops. Whenever you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. The best part is the app from our friends at FanDuel is incredibly simple and easy to use. So you'll get started today and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Take advantage of it today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel and FanDuel.com, as they are, once again, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. If you have not done so already, sign up for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group and enjoy the perks of being a true insider. I'm giving you all the intel I've got on BYU sports and passing it along in text message form to you guys, coming directly to your device. And having to log into a message board or go to a website to get the inside scoop comes right to you guys. 14-day free trial by clicking the link in the show notes below, and then just $5 a month afterwards to join us. And let's just put it this way. BYU 7-0, business is good, and the Locked On Cougars Insider Group is absolutely thriving right now. Like I said, between social media and my Locked On Cougars Insider Group, we've got north of probably 250 conservatively in terms of responses, and I'm not going to get through all of these. I apologize if I don't get to your thoughts on this game, but what an incredible night it was. I am, in fact, I'll just say this right now. There are games that I would have liked to have watched, obviously sitting in the stands and embrace and feel and be able to experience all of the ambiance of the stadium culture that's out there. This is one of those games. If I had my druthers and had I known how things are going to go tonight, I guess last night by the time I'm recording this, I would have gone and sat in the stands, just let it soak it all in. I have been lucky enough to watch BYU play across this country in Camp Randall Stadium, at Tennessee and Knoxville. I've been all over this country with this squad, but I'm telling you, moments inside LaVell Edwards Stadium like that, they don't come along all that often because they're and there's a lot of big moments, but we're talking iconic, like history type moments. Those don't happen a lot, so embrace them all the same. All right, thoughts from you guys. Let's get to it. Morgan, what period game, exclamation point, like 15 times. Just win, baby. Wasn't pretty, but came away with a W, and that's all that matters. Amen. I don't have anything to add to that. I think it's a perfect thought on this game, Morgan. The one negative I'll mention, 3rd and long is an issue for the defense to stop. Not sure what the reason is, but it's been an issue most of the season. That comes from Riker. It's got to be fixed. I already mentioned it. Yeah, absolutely. Danny, what a win. Question, Jake, what dance do you do? Let's just put it this way, Danny. I am a horrific dancer. I'm a middle-aged dad of 3 who grew up in Utah County, and let's just put it this way. These hips absolutely do lie. Sorry, I'm not. I don't proclaim to be a dancer one bit. Let's see. Other ones coming in here. This game was a great confidence booster for the fans. Come from behind offensive-led victory is not what anybody had in mind. Not what anyone had in their prediction. It's a great point coming from Spencer. Absolutely. I don't think anybody anticipated this game going the way it did, but it's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling the way it went down. Ryan, a gutsy win for sure. LJ Martin should be carrying the ball more than at least 20 times a game. He had 20 in this game, and I expect it to only go up from there. I think 20 to 25 is the perfect amount in my mind for him, with the other backs taking the other carries. That run by Retzlaff made a huge difference. You're not kidding. That final drive, remember, a 3rd down conversion that Chase Roberts gets off a back foot throw from Jake Retzlaff. Then Retzlaff finds himself out on the perimeter and sees, I got acres of green in front of me. Let's just scoot down the field and get us in scoring position with this one play. Masterclass. And the other thing I'll add on that is, did you see any panic from BYU's offense? They act like they'd been there before, and they hadn't been this season. That's the mark of a team that is, they're smart. They're veteran. They know what they're doing, and they know what they're capable of. They believe in themselves. It's not all just bluster and them saying, well, nobody believes in us. No, they legitimately believe in themselves. They don't care what anybody else thinks of them. They believe internally that they have what it takes, and who am I to say that they're wrong, because they're 7-0 right now. That timeout Kalani called right before Oklahoma State scored might have saved the game. And you're not wrong about that. It comes from Clint. That was in retrospect, a strategic timeout that BYU absolutely needed. Let's see. Got some great ones here. Jake Retzlaff had some Heisman moments in that game. He also had some boneheaded mistakes, but man, that was a great last drive. That comes from Jaden. You're not wrong. Incredible scenes. Yeah, the first half, as I said, you went and did something completely stupid, and boy, did you redeem yourself in the end, speaking of Jake Retzlaff. Is there any talk of Darius or Glasgow from NFL scouts coming from Robert? I'm going to dig into that. I have some contacts in the NFL world, and I'll reach out and see what I can find out for you, Robert. That's a great question. I would say I hope so, because they're really, really good. Let's see. Clay Drown. Couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. Looked like Oklahoma State's offensive line really played well. Yeah, they did. And by the way, I do want to give a shout out to Ollie Gordon II. What a warrior that young man proved to be in this game. Isaiah Glasgow absolutely plastered him twice in this game, and he was essentially half carried off the field after that second hit that Isaiah put on him late in this game. And then we're talking maybe a drive or two later, all of a sudden, number 0, Ollie Gordon II's back on the field. And I'm like, is this the guy that I just saw like get carried off the field and seemed like he couldn't move? Yeah, he came back in the game. What an incredible thing. And hats off to him. Had his best performance by far. And BYU almost paid the price for that, obviously. But 100 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Congratulations to him. And like I said, an absolute warrior. And I hope that kid really gets going now as the season progresses here. Let's see. Bryant, proud of the team for winning a game they probably shouldn't have. Great to be 7-0, but can we please figure out how to get on this cut off on me? How to get off the field on 3rd and 4th down on defense. 11 of 15, you mentioned the 9 of 13, and obviously the 2 of 2 on 4th down is unacceptable. It didn't cost us tonight, but it may down the road. Still, we won the game. So I can't be too upset. Go Cougs. Man, Ryan, I don't think you said anything that anybody would disagree with there. Geez, I'm looking at this and the reaction, it's all a lot of the same stuff, but it's incredible to bask in it because we're living it in real time when I see this on social media. Terry Haight Sellers has a good point here. Says, with 52 seconds left in the game, ESPN's analytics, the FPI said that Oklahoma State had a 99.2% chance of winning that game. If I'm not mistaken, that 52 seconds is when Jake Retzlaff motored up the field and got him into scoring territory with his feet. That changed that. And you can look at the FPI, that kind of that game percentages index. It goes skews super high to Oklahoma State and then crashes right down to BYU with that touchdown. What an incredible drive and what an incredible moment for BYU football. Let's see. Defense got exposed. Gonna have to make adjustments so this will happen again. Other than the interceptions, the offense, other than the interceptions, the offense looked pretty good. That comes from Jensen. Yeah, I agree. They do need to clean some things up. And I already talked about those. But as you continue to win, does it really matter? I talk about this all the time on the podcast. What do you really care about as a fan? Your team having more points than the other team at the end of the night. And that's what happened once again in this one. Let's see. Chris, and by the way, Chris, thank you for that hat. I actually wore it on yesterday's podcast from his home course, Palma Valley. Says this, Jake, I was at the 1980 Holiday Bowl, and tonight's game was every bit as incredible. I'm sure the stadium was incredibly loud after Lassiter's touchdown. It absolutely was. It was an absolute madhouse. I don't mean to get too wistful on this, but think of that 1980 Holiday Bowl. That's obviously the Miracle Bowl, the one that BYU staged that 21-point come from behind victory in the final 3 minutes and change with Jim McMahon at the helm. My dad and my grandpa were at that game. My uncle was there. I had a great uncle as well. They all went to that game, and they talk glowingly about the moments of those Holiday Bowls. They talk about an 83 Holiday Bowl, the throwback from Eddie Stinnett to Steve Young. They talk about the 84 game with the heroics of Robbie Bosco. Many of you know that my grandfather passed away this summer before the season began. And man, I didn't anticipate this podcast ending this way, but the more the season progresses, because he talked all the time about how incredible the 84 season was, because it was an incredible run, a miracle run in many respects for BYU to win that national championship. He talked often when I was growing up about how incredible that season was. And I probably watched more BYU games with my grandpa. The only person that's maybe watched more games with me is my dad. And it's pretty close because I spent a lot of time with both of them watching these BYU games growing up. And I can't help but think my grandpa's got the best seat in the house. He loved BYU. It was everything to him, and BYU football in particular. These are moments that kids, yourself, siblings, spouses, grandfathers, whatever it is, that are going to stick with you forever. The more I watch this season kind of unfold, the more I think about my grandpa, because he would have been calling me after every one of these games, no matter how late. He would have called me at when this game ended, almost midnight. He would have called me at midnight, and we would have tried to break it down. I would have told him, "Hey, Grandpa, I'll call you right as soon as I'm done with my post-game radio show." And we would have talked about it. He stayed up till all hours to watch BYU. And I got to believe in the great hereafter that he's watching BYU. And like I said, he's got the best seat in the house. And it's really cool to watch what's happening with BYU football right now. So let's enjoy it. I think we get too tied up in a lot of the minutia of this game and the way that BYU is performing here and there and some of the things that they need to fix and all that, but they're 7-0. Life is good. They're likely to be a top 10 team if things go according to plan this weekend. And there's a lot of big games. A lot of teams could move up and down the rankings. This is a top 10 caliber squad for BYU. They have proven it on the field. I don't want to hear anything other than this is a team that knows how to win football games. And I wasn't alive for 84, but geez, I got to watch 96. I have seen the 06 to 2010 run where they won, was it 40 some odd games in that stretch. I've watched the 2020 season. This 2024 season, it's shaping up, folks. There's something about it. It's pretty special. So let's embrace it. Let's have some fun with it. And we'll continue to break it all down as we always do. Man, like I said, Chris didn't mean to take your question and turn it on myself, but it's a lot of what I think about with my grandpa. Every one of these games, I just keep thinking about, man, Herman would have loved that. Well, I know he's loving it, but he's watching it from a different lens now, I guess is the best way to say it. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. So like I said, more than 250 messages. I got through maybe like 20 of them. So thank you to all of you, truthfully. Thousands of you out there. We have seen, man, I wish I could really quantify how much this season has meant to this show, but it was one of you that sent a message in. I don't remember who it was. I don't have time to pull it up right now. Said, Jake, you're part of the soundtrack of the season. So I'm trying to be here to chronicle it all. Let's have some fun with it. It's going to be a really, really fun run, and I hope it doesn't end anytime soon. Could it end next week? Sure. They could lose at UCF, but you know what? In the meantime, they're 7-0. They're likely to be a top 10 team, and let's celebrate that very fact and have some fun along the way with this BYU football team. All right. I'm done. I got to step aside. So thank you, as always, for your support of the podcast. I truly mean this when I say this. Thank you for making it your first view and or listen of the day. I see many of you out there when I'm at BYU games who stop me and say, Jake, thank you for doing what you do. Well, guess what? Thank you for doing what you do and consuming what you consume with this podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening to it wherever you get your podcast. And as always, I say it all the time. Thank you truthfully to those of you who we like to call everydayers, the people who show up day after day after day and let me drone on and talk about all things BYU sports and cry on camera about my grandpa again for like the umpteenth time. But it's fun and we're having a lot of fun with this season. So let's just hope the good times keep rolling. And this truly morphs into 40 years after the fact. Could BYU be chasing another national title? Sure feels like it's shaping up that way, but we'll see what happens in the coming days and weeks as BYU plods their way on in this season. All right, that's going to do it. As always, truthfully, thank you for your support of the podcast. This has been the postcast edition as BYU wins in thrilling fashion down in the Oklahoma State Cowboys and getting to 7-0. And we will talk to you guys again soon right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.